equality and liberation. So it's Archanaa who's up first.
Hi, I'm Archanaa and I'm a student of the MA Gender Studies program at the Center for Gender Studies. I've been at SOAS and in the UK for just over 6 months, but I've been an activist for far, far longer. I've worked on homelessness, mental health, corporate accountability, environmental justice, pollution, gender and feminist rights, and all kinds of human and political rights, including anti-caste, dissent and media and culture activisms in India. I am an international student from India and I might be fresh to the role, but my experiences as both a student rep and an activist shape my beliefs and my broad mandates. Enough is enough. We've heard it all through the year, but I think that's only good enough as a conversation starter to tackle harassment. And conversations around consent need more than understanding. I think it requires accountability and acceptance of justice as something defined by the victim. The student union, I think, then should be able to follow through the path of justice laid out by the affected. This approach is one that I think the Me Too movement is bringing out in the light. Anonymous marking, unconscious bias workshops are ways to think about BME attainment gap. But I think a watchdog committee to monitor the yields of such trainings is the need of the hour at SOAS. Most importantly, I think we should find out what students want with regard to the BME attainment gap instead of going by just what the school is setting as standards. As long as we have amongst us students and academics who are attempting to teach black students what it is to be black, decolonizing will only be a vision and a verb and not translate to action. So, will anti-racist workshops, collective curriculum framing and detailed casework and follow-through help? I think we must find out. Disability, I think, does not end with recognition and incorporating student inclusion plans. Till we rethink access, assessments and get creative to change the measures by which we are recording output and productivity. I'm a trained peer counselor and I see how I'm able to help students. Will peer counselors in every classroom help? I think we should find out. Creativity takes courage, said Matisse. And in this neoliberal agenda that strictly defines what success is and works to keep creative juices at bay, I beg for a bigger critique of investments and institutions and a culture of critical thinking. 30 seconds, I have 3 minutes. Okay, then I'm really getting to the end. Without community, there is no liberation, said one of my favorite feminists. Within the SOAS community, I see liberation as a possibility and with it equality. I promise possibility, partnership and persistence. I promise to ask the right questions, the uncomfortable ones, and always to be a feminist killjoy, calling in without being afraid to cause unhappiness. I promise transparency, openness, a shoulder and ears to anybody who needs it. But ask
on the stage.
Hi guys, I'm Youssra, current co-president of Equality and Liberation, and I am rerunning for a second term. Closer. I am first app to do this since 2010, but I just don't think having not done it for 9 years is a good enough reason not to do it again. I do hope that I'm going to talk for a while about why I'm rerunning and then get on to what I want to do with the role. The first reason doesn't sound great. It's not that convincing, but I just didn't know what I was doing when I first got in the role. I remember sitting in the meeting in August being like, what's your KPI for the BME attainment gap? And I sat there and was like, not sure. And now I know how I would tackle the BME attainment gap is that we need to change the way we're measuring the BME attainment gap. Measuring how many people are getting first and 2-1s is not an actual analysis. There's no nuance to it. We need to use a value-added KPI. That's the way Kingston's doing it. That's how they're reducing their BME attainment gap. I also remember that I wanted to introduce third-party reporting, which is basically where you're like, I saw this happen to someone or this happened to my friend. I would like to protect their identity as a victim survivor. We were told that was illegal. We were told that because of natural justice, we couldn't do that. Sussex Union does it. I don't understand why we can't. So these are things that like it takes you time to find your feet, and this is not to take away from the SAB role, but it's incredibly unique. It's also incredibly stressful, and I just feel like I'm finding my feet now and making progress on my manifesto from last year. I would like to continue that work. The other reason is I just really love the job. I know it's kind of obvious, but I think it's worth stating that I love coming into work every day. I love shaping and defining student experience here, and I would just really love the privilege to do it for another year. What I would do if I was given it for another year, when writing the speech and my manifesto, I looked at last year's manifesto and was incredibly surprised at how empty it was. And I don't mean empty like there was nothing on it, it was pretty text heavy, but it was just full of buzzwords. You could literally do buzzword bingo with that manifesto. It was empty, there was nothing to promise in there. This manifesto might not be as like sexy and exciting as last year's, but it's really doable. I think the Jargon Buster is a really great way of introducing students to the SOAS community. I think often activism can be really inaccessible, and this is not to put the burden on us to explain really basic ways of oppression, but it's to give accountability to those who are being problematic and calling out ignorance, because you have that centre there. One policy I am carrying over from last year is Liberation Mental Health. SOAS sells itself on being this diverse. Oh no, we're running out of time. Diverse and like incredibly creative student body, but they're not providing the support. You can't bring students here and be like, we're going to decolonise and let you suffer from your mental health. Essentially, I think that there's a lot of my manifesto I don't have time to talk about, and I've made mistakes this year in the Students' Union. I haven't acted when I wanted to act, and I'd really like the chance to do it again. So thank you for being my manifesto.
Okay, do we have any questions? Any questions? We'll go one. Anybody else? Two. Different people asking a question?
Hello, this question isn't based on any SABs at the moment, but previously an experience of being a student here for 4 years, you try and get contact with someone who's a SAB and it's very difficult. How do you plan to make it easier for people to feel like their voice is being heard, to feel like their opinions are relevant, and yeah, they have the opportunity to see their change enacted in the university?
Would it be possible for you to repeat that question?
So basically, how are you going to make it, make students feel their voices are being heard and that they can access you and that you care about their opinion?
I had this down, I ran out of time, I hopefully won't this time around, but I think communication is key. Like I said, my ears and shoulders are always available, and I will do my best to represent it. With respect to strategies, I think we've got to work together. I have lots of ideas, but I think complex solutions come for complex strategies, and we've got to work together to see what we want. But I think together we can, and I'm willing to put my all into it.
I am going to use my year as a SAB to answer this question because I've done it for a year, and I also know that per day I get about 70 emails into my inbox. I am so guilty of letting things fly under the radar. What I've gotten so much better at doing is asking students what they want. So you guys come with great ideas, and I'm like, I have no idea how to facilitate that panel. So often you just ask the student, all they needed was that recognition, that you've got that email and you're willing to work with them, and they will come in for a meeting. Like, you guys mobilize so quickly as soon as you get the green light. It is literally just about telling students you are there and you listen to them.
Just thinking about this restructuring that's underway, and unfortunately if it does go through, I'm picking up on the word equality in your role, because restructurings and the system of capitalism doesn't affect people equally. So I just wanted to find out that if that happens, how are you going to make sure that equality translates to something more? Perhaps equity is the right word, and what would you do for that?
This is a really important question. This is one of the failures that I was talking about in the Students' Union this year, not acting fast enough on the restructuring. Those at the lowest grades tend to be BME people, they tend to be women, and they are the ones being cut. This is a massive issue. The school has apparently done an equality impact assessment of the restructuring. We haven't seen it. We've asked for it for 3 months. How do you tackle that? I don't know, except to be like, it is unacceptable. You can't be cutting those at the lowest grades. And I'd like to take responsibility and hold my hand up and apologise to the community for not acting on that fast enough.
Time.
It is something we're talking about.
Time.
I have it down and I'm going to read from here actually. We are, after all, at SOAS, a people that take pride in building a brand around protests. And we must shout, I think, when we see spines shorten as they climb up the managerial ladder. So I say save SOAS, and save it by asking for more poetry and less numbers. Save SOAS by more protest and less stats. And let's do what it takes to get what each of us want from this uni.
Last question. Is that 2? Yeah. Third question. Third question. Even if you've already asked one, feel free to put up your hand again. There we go.
So my question is about the new co-president role.
Oh, it's not new. The black student president.
Yeah.
That was in my speech around.
So what would that look like, in your opinion, and how would you facilitate that new co-president? As someone who is already serving us for equality, how would you help facilitate that new presidential role, and how would you see that fitting in with the way that the student union is run at the moment? And how can you facilitate that specifically? This isn't a question just generally about it, but for your role, how would you be involved with that and facilitate that? Yeah.
Excellent question, and I think fantastic what happened yesterday. I think more hands on deck, yes. So more representation, hopefully more voices can be heard, and more checks in place then, if we have more people. I think the very reason the role of this co-president was created is to further links with liberation officers. So now we have 2 roles that can further links with all the liberation officers, cut through causes, meet at differences, start converging.
Time.
I'm going to take the really boring, actual logistics of how I think we can implement this role. When Equality and Liberation was invented 4 years ago, the Students' Union floated the cost of the salary for a year and proved to the school we need it. I think it's a great system to do it again. In the meantime, they are talking about introducing decolonising workshops for those students who came up with that UGM motion, because it's not just the academics, it's students in the classroom causing those microaggressions, right? So in the meantime, if we don't have the paid role, we should be taking other steps to get there. So money and decolonising workshops for fashion.
Time. That's it. That's 3 questions. Perfect.